Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's AEW Dynamite review show here on the unofficial WWE podcast. Today is Thursday, August 5th, 2021. My name is Mimi Burris, and we are here to talk about AEW Homecoming, obviously back in Daly's place last night, and a crazy main event, TNT Championship Match, the labors of Jericho, a whole bunch to get into. There was a lot of good to talk about from last night, but there is definitely some stuff that we are going to lay the firm hand down. I don't know what the expression is. We're going to critique, essentially. So we'll get into all of that right after this.
Championship means that much. I can't believe what we're seeing here.
DMD. And I hope you all enjoyed this episode of AEW Dynamite as much as I did, if not more. And maybe you don't watch it with this annoying critical eye that I do and can just enjoy it for what it is. But there was definitely a bunch of stuff that was no so bueno, guys. But there was, on the same token, a bunch of stuff that was so bueno. So we're going to talk about it all as we go down the match card per usual. Before we start, though, I do want to quickly plug Patreon, which is $1 a month to get all of these shows ad-free. Go check us out on Patreon. There's an app. It's online. Whatever you prefer. There's also a bunch of other tiers to Patreon. I don't know what the deal is with it now, but essentially, guys, $1 a month, all these shows ad-free. Not bad. And if Patreon's not your style, if you are brand loyal, you are loyal to wherever you listen to your podcast from. Well, I guess this doesn't really count. If you're brand loyal to Apple Podcasts, you can also subscribe on Apple Podcasts. I think it's $2.99, and I forget every week, guys. Forget every week. It's a reasonable price to get all these shows ad-free on Apple Podcasts as well. So whatever suits your fancy, we got it here. And I don't know about you guys, I hate ads. I can't listen to shows with ads, or at least an excessive amount of ads. I hate that YouTube now decided they're going to put 2 ads back to back in between everything I ever watch on YouTube. I can't stand ads, but we know why there's advertisements in the world. Makes the world go round, makes the TV world go round, makes the podcast go round, world round. You guys don't need a lecture on advertisements, so I'm going to stop talking about Patreon and Apple and plug Twitter, the tweeter. If you want to follow me on the tweeter, it's at Mimi Burris. Or if you want to send me your thoughts, which a lot of you have taken advantage of this week and last week especially, you can shoot me an email at Mimi Burris. No, what is it? I do it every time, guys. Every fucking week. It's mimi.realwwepodcast@gmail.com. And you'd think I could just edit that out and then restate it, but I'm not going to do that because I will get better at this. Anyways, with that all being said, guys, let's move on down to the top of the card and start from the start of the show here. That's what the top of the card means. Let's just get talking about Dynamite because that's something that I guess I can do better at. All right. We started off this show with Chris Jericho versus Juventud Guerrero, and it is the third Labor of Jericho match. We'll obviously get into the post-match as well. But yeah, this match was exactly what you think it was. You've got 2 50-year-old men wrestling. I don't know how old. Let me look. Juventud Guerrera is 46. Okay, well, if we're rounding up here, 2 50-ish-year-old men who, you know, Jericho's definitely not in his prime in the ring anymore, and you guys know the story. This is what we got. We got 2 older gentlemen wrestling in a match. I was not expecting Sammy Guevara versus MJF, Kenny Omega versus Rey Fenix. I was expecting exactly what I got, and that's probably why I enjoyed this more than I think a lot of people did. I thought I was more impressed with the stuff they were able to pull off than annoyed by the stuff that they weren't able to pull off. So this was pretty good. I mean, there were a bunch of high spots, let's just call it that. We had back suplexes, Jericho hitting a butterfly backbreaker. That looked rough. And he goes for the cover after that, but Aubrey Edwards has to remind him that he has to hit a move off the top rope in order to get the 3 count. Like every good baby face, Jericho starts tearing off Hoovie's mask. And then He counters an avalanche Frankensteiner obviously off the top rope into the walls of Jericho. That counts apparently, but Hoovy gets to the ropes. And then Jericho hits Hoovy with the Judas effect. However, again, he's not allowed to go for the pinfall. He's got to do it off the top rope. So no, guys, we did not see a shooting star press. We did not see a 640, a coup de grace, or whatever. We just saw, and this was awesome, I thought, too. I thought they really executed this move well. He did the Judas effect off the top rope, and I really thought that was a great finish to the match. And again, guys, I enjoyed this opener. The crowd was into it the whole time, and that's really what matters, I guess. And like I said, I was too. Not every wrestling match is going to be perfect, flawless stuff, and these two guys are in their freaking 40s and 50s. Like, what are we expecting out of them? However, with that being said, the question probably has to be posed, is this quote-unquote all elite? And, I think as Jericho winds down, probably eventually at least, to a non-in-ring career, I don't know when he's going to do that. I don't know what his plan is, obviously. He's not a good friend of mine personally. I don't know him that well. However, if he can still go, he's definitely a name value, and this was a name value nostalgia match for a lot of people, so why not? I don't think they overstayed their welcome. I could have chopped off 2 minutes from the match, maybe, which kind of completely contradicts what I just said, but you guys know what I'm saying, hopefully, because I don't. So after the match, post-match, Wardlow comes out, attacks Jericho, hits Hoovy with the F10, and then hits Jericho with the Casualty of War. And then, of course, I forgot to I don't know how I forgot to mention this, because he was like chef's kiss, perfect as always, MJF on commentary, threatening to, go after Tony Schiavone on multiple occasions, calling Aubrey Edwards a floozy. Just true MJF stuff. I love when a good heel rips up the sign too. That's such an easy hit for me when he came out to the table. I really thought just like little things like that are so key for like, God, that guy's a freaking what. And so MJF played his part perfectly. So he comes on the microphone and says that if Jericho thought he'd let him rest between labors, he's as dumb as the idiots in the crowd. His opponent for labor number 4 is Wardlow, and the stipulation is that he's going to be accompanied by someone who will count the match fair and square, a real salt-of-the-earth guy, MJF. This was a little confusing because the commentator started talking about how he was going to be the guest referee, but later on they said that he was just going to be outside of the ring. I don't know. It makes more sense to have him as the guest referee in kayfabe terms, but I don't know what they're doing here. Now it kind of just looks stupid that he hasn't made himself a guest referee yet, but whatever. Nonetheless, MJF and Wardlow, just Wardlow versus Chris Jericho with MJF outside the ring or a guest referee. I'm not exactly sure. I guess we will see as the week goes on, but from what I saw towards the end of the show, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong too, I think it was that he's just going to be outside the ring. But again, now that kind of makes him look stupid. The announce team on Dynamite, something's got to happen with that. I don't know if anybody else agrees with me, but I think Excalibur does great color commentary. I think Jim Ross is the Jim Ross, and there's a reason for him to be on commentary, although he does obviously have a lot of flubs here and there. But you know what? It's like nice. I'm going to go into like a whole nother conversation here, but bear with me, guys. There's a weird median you have to find between like really raw, unproduced stuff versus like not looking cookie cutter. Because this is a pro wrestling company at the end of the day, right? So like we're not talking about like things should feel off the cuff and raw, for lack of a better term, and not so cookie cutter, put together, perfectly produced. However, a lot of mistakes on that commentary table lately. And I won't necessarily point fingers, but a lot of mistakes on that commentary table. And I just think something needs to be switched around. They need to figure something out. They need to move more turds. They need to move more towards the produced side of things. I think they're a little bit too, I don't know. This is you want to be taken seriously as a real competition professional wrestling company, right? Like, your commentators got to be way more on point. I know when you watch real combat fighting, and I don't necessarily mean real, you guys know what I'm trying to say, UFC, MMA, all that stuff, the commentators are way more on point. This is starting to sound like one of those social media boxing events. If you watched that or ever seen one of those, you know what I'm talking about the awful commentary that goes on. So, nonetheless, as I go on that huge tangent about commentary, the actual labor, it makes sense. But now, again, like I said, it feels like it seems silly if MJF isn't the guest ref. Why would he not just make himself the guest referee? So, another reason why the commentary needs to, like, tighten up a bit. You took me out of the moment, kayfabe-wise at least. And then, yeah, it makes sense that Wardlow and the parallels between the Cody thing and the labors for Cody. But I don't know, guys. You had Nick freaking Gage. You brought Hoovy back. It just seems like 1 and 4 are pretty boring in comparison. I think they allowed us to speculate some crazy stuff. And although, yeah, this makes sense, I don't know. I expected more. But again, let me know what you guys think. Again, it's perfectly sensible. It's just kind of boring in comparison. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts if anyone else agrees with me with that. A lot of you and a lot of people really like Wardlow. I'm not necessarily on that train yet, I guess. It's not that he's bad or anything. I don't see I don't see a lot in him that's any more special than a lot of other big jacked up guys I've seen in pro wrestling that are good at pro wrestling. You know, I've heard about 2 total words from him on the microphone. He plays his part well, but his part is like bodyguard. I don't know. I was not super thrilled or excited. They've gotten me excited each time now, and this was a letdown. So, and I don't think I'm alone in saying that. After the match, we had the Lucha Brothers being interviewed backstage. Alex Abrahantes said that Pac should have been here, but conveniently all of his travel got canceled. And who would do that? Of course, Andrade, El Idolo, and Chavo Guerrero Jr. roll up to essentially take the credit. And then both parties go back and forth for a minute. Andrade wonders where his thank yous are for the limousines last week for Penta and Rey Fenix. And if they came and worked for Andrade, they'd get that kind of treatment every week. And then both the Lucha Brothers say that they don't work for anybody. And essentially, Penta says a bunch of stuff in Spanish. And then Alex Abrahantes just goes, Penta says no. And they walk off, and Chavo tells Andrade that they will come around and eventually work for him. And I don't care about this because it's really boring. And they took a lot of, I know it doesn't feel like it, but they took a good amount of TV uptime. They took a good amount of TV time up with this on Dynamite this week and last week. And Chavo's just not it, guys. Chavo is not it. And I am keeping the faith in AEW because, wow, did Miro suck for a while in the best man gimmick. And now as God's favorite champion, he had an incredible match later on the show that we're going to talk about. But why can't they just get debuts right, guys? I swear if they screw up Daniel Bryan and CM Punk, this will truly be their legacy, is that they cannot get a debut right. With the Christian thing and obviously Miro, as I mentioned, I just think Andrade is so much more talented than he's getting used for right now. And I know that you can't have them just have matches every week because there's a whole ranking system, but honestly, there's plenty of time for that now. So when we come back, Hangman Page and the Dark Order I take that back. Excuse me. The Dark Order are being interviewed by Tony Schiavone, and as they're about to start talking, Hangman Page comes into the shot. He forgot his drink, and everybody's wondering where he's been. Page is clearly upset that they lost their tag title shot, and he says he supports them, but he needs to handle his own business with the Elite, and they should go their separate ways. Essentially, Hangman Page breaks up with the Dark Order, and breaks my heart, because that's what happens when you're emotionally invested in things. Who would have thought? They try to reassure him that they're friends, and that he doesn't have to go at it alone, but Evil Uno says that they should give him his space when he walks off, and this was great. This was really well done, and obviously we'll talk a little bit more about it when we get into the segment later on in the show. But yeah, this is heartbreaking, and I don't know. I swear to God, guys, if they don't pull out this all-out match, I'm going to be so upset because I'm emotionally invested, and this is like the most I remember being emotionally invested in a storyline in a long time between Paige and the Elite, obviously. They're doing such a good job of just like letting it play out every week, and some weeks maybe not, but they're just doing such a good job of a clear babyface heel with the I've mentioned this before, like mental illness, undertones, depression, obviously, the drinking, the just having friends have your back and stuff like that. And they did a really good job telling this later on, so I will save my rest of my analyzing analytics, talking about it until later on in the show. We got a quick 2.0 and Daniel Garcia promo where they talk about how they're underutilized, and we had 2.0, aka Everrise from NXT, just doing their shtick. Everrise is the greatest thing ever. I'm so happy, even if this was a one-off, that they got this opportunity and they crushed it. This was without a doubt my favorite match of the night, even above the main event. This was like house show, but for TV, if that makes sense. It was just so perfectly laid out with all the little spots, and comedy during a match, nonetheless, just in wrestling, period, is not easy. And 2.0, aka Everrise, were perfect at it in this match. And so we'll talk about all the cute little spots, but obviously Daniel Garcia too, more of an indie wrestler. I'm not as familiar with him, but he had a great showing as well. And so hopefully this is not just a one-off, because I think 2.0 would be perfect for what they are. They're entertaining. I don't want to call them jobbers, because that's not really, they're entertaining enhancement talent maybe, but they're also really good at what they do, and they're also really talented in the ring, so they could definitely be like down the line babyface favorites one day to finally like get the title shot. So who knows? Maybe 2.0 will take the titles off the Young Bucks, but I doubt it. So yes, this was 2.0, aka Jeff Parker and Matt Lee, and Daniel Garcia versus Darby Allin, Eddie Kingston, and Jon Moxley. Obviously 2.0 and Daniel Garcia came out first, and then we had Darby Allin, and then we had the wonderful entrance with Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. Garcia and Allin start the match, and they have some aggressive grappling back and forth. Garcia looks great here, picking the leg, crucifix. Eventually, Allin gets the tag to Kingston, a quick little hot tag, and this was one of my favorite spots of the match. Eddie Kingston is in the middle of the ring, obviously, with Matt Lee. I think I always mix up their names, but Matt Lee is just trying to hit him with chops, nothing. And then Eddie puts the boot to Matt in the corner, stomps away. When the referee looks away, Moxley basically is choking him. And I want to get back to that point, so don't let me forget that, guys, even though you're not here with me, so I might forget that. But we get Parker hitting a cheap shot, Lee with a chop block, and then we get a tag to Daniel, and then we go to picture-in-picture. When we come back, we had Garcia blocking the tag from Kingston to Moxley, but eventually Moxley gets the tag and rushes up to beat all of them, throws him to the floor, and basically he throws Matt to the floor, and Matt stands right in front of Sting, gets starstruck by Sting, and Darby Allin gets shot out of a freaking, like, cannon. Just nails Matt with a tope suicida. That was one of the best moments of the match as well. Matt did such a good job of just like, oh my God, you're Sting. It was just really tastefully perfect. Not too much, not too little. Just the right amount of comedy in this match. And then Moxley hits a German suplex on Lee, and then a clothesline. Kingston hits the back fist into the future on Parker, and then we get a paradigm shift to Garcia with Darby Allin hitting the coffin drop to get the 1-2-3 and gets the pinfall on Daniel Garcia. And that, guys, my whole little rundown there, I tried to get all the little spots, but is nothing in comparison for the match. So if for some reason you're listening to the show and you haven't seen the match, I don't know why you would do that, but go watch the match. It was great. And really just fun. It is something that I would go back and watch too. I just enjoyed watching. I enjoyed being a pro wrestling fan while I watched this, and you know, I'm obviously emotionally invested in the other three, and Jon Moxley, Darby Allin, and Eddie Kingston, three of the biggest stars in AEW right now. And it was just a fun homecoming match to get them out in front of the fans. And a lot of the stuff was really, really good. Like I said, that tope suicida, suicide dive, whatever you want to call it, looked absolutely absurd. So I really enjoyed this match. I hope 2.0 get a more of a push, or not a push. That's not what I'm looking for. I hope they become all elite. Personally, I think they'd be a perfect, lighthearted moment in a lot of these shows where sometimes it could definitely use that, and definitely are a great. I'm sure they would definitely make Dark an even better show to watch. So As I mentioned, though, the Moxley thing. He, when the referee's looking away, he's choking. I forget who it was. I think it was Jeff Parker. But Moxley's been looking a little bit disheveled, no? And I know he just had his firstborn, but could we be seeing a Moxley heel turn, maybe, with, All Out coming up, and they had the announcement that Hiroshi Tanahashi was going to be was going to face Lance Archer for the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship. I don't know, guys. I want to see Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Jon Moxley in Chicago at All Out more than a lot of things that I want in life. So I would really, really love to see that. And clearly, Jon Moxley would probably be playing the heel in that feud. And I mean, guys, if anybody can do it and get the crowd to turn on him, it's Jon Moxley. My one thing is Jon Moxley is such a beloved babyface. We'd miss him. We would miss him. And I don't know if this is a good enough comparison, but you could compare it to the Stone Cold heel turn. Did people really want that? No. And so, I don't know. Do people really want Jon Moxley to turn heel? I don't know. I don't know what's best or what's going to be best for him or what's going to be best for the story. I don't know if it's just a better way to do, two guys who really respect each other but want to beat the crap out of each other. I don't know how to best book this, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, and hopefully this match does get booked for All Out, because that is a mouth-watering prospect, absolutely. So, who knows? I did want to quickly mention that, though, because each week I'm seeing little signs, whether it's the way he's talking in his promos or the way in this match, obviously. He might just be Jon Moxley being Jon Moxley, but who knows? So, Team Taz, obviously, vignette follows after the match between Ricky Starks and Brian Cage, going back and forth about Brian Cage saying he never needed Team Taz, basically, shaming the FTW championship. That's not the word I'm looking for, but you guys saw the thing. And then Ricky Starks is like, you're not good, and Brian Cage is like, you're not good. And I don't want to talk about that on this show, so I'm going to skip it and move on. The Elite hanging out backstage, and Carl Anderson is spinning a basketball. They're counting into like the 2000s or something. It's wonderful stuff, this promo, guys. Doc Gallows is in a Ric Flair robe. Why? I don't know. Doc says that they're going to give the Dark Order an Impact World Tag Team Championship shot, but they will lose. The Young Bucks talk about their lack of tag team challengers, say that they beat everybody, so they're going to need to be buried with those belts, have their jerseys hung up. And Brandon Cutler tries to say something really quickly, and Kenny Omega says, shut up, essentially, and says Hangman Page blew it at the buzzer beater. He takes a bunch of shots with the basketball for whatever's that worth, and then misses it. And he's all alone and out of the main event, and that's all that's left to cut down is the net, or all that's left to do is to cut down the net. We have Brandon Cutler cutting down the net. Kenny Omega in a Cookie Monster shirt, guys. I don't know what the heck noise Nick Jackson makes, but I think I love it. This was just your typical obnoxious The Elite promo. They are so good at what they do. They look like those people that, like, you want to be friends with them, and then you get to know them, and you're like, no, I do not want to be friends with you. You're actually like this all the time. And, this was great. And obviously we're going to talk about them later on in the show when we get to that segment with the Elite and Hangman Page. So let's move on to the next match. It's Christian Cage versus The Blade. And this was better than I was more into this than I thought I was going to be. First of all, The Blade, I don't think I've ever mentioned on the show, and definitely needs to be mentioned. The Blade is just built different. I mean, the guy is in incredible shape, or at least looks like it. So definitely shout out to the Blade here. But this match was just back and forth between Blade and Christian. First, Christian got most of the offense, and then Blade took advantage of a distraction from Bunny. We had Chris Statlander, what am I saying that? We had Layla Hirsch come out and make the save for Christian and brawl with the Bunny backstage. And then, this became a one-on-one match. A couple DDTs, hanging DDTs. Christian jumped off the top rope to the outside and hit the double forearms, or what is it called? The double axe handle. We had vintage Christian with the jump over slapping uppercut thing. We had, which again is another commentary mistake. He said like uppercut. I was like, I just watched that. It was clearly just a slap in the face. I know it sounds silly, guys, but like, we expect sports commentators from real sports to know what they're talking about. I expect that, and the same thing with pro wrestling. So, throwing it out there. I will probably not mention that again. At least I will hope so. But a great suplex from the Blade to Christian, hanging up on the ropes. Like I said, Blade took control eventually. Christian ends up recovering, though. He chokes Parks over the middle rope and follows it off with that slingshot slap I was talking about. He had some diving uppercuts, and then the Blade throws him off, hits him with a back elbow, tornado DDT, or tries to hit the tornado DDT, gets blocked, but then hits him with the snap scoop power slam for a 2 count. And then later on in the match, hits him with a bunch of kicks, starts to take the turnbuckle pad off, distracts the referee, goes and grabs the knucks, but Christian ends up hitting him with the spear and gets the 1-2-3 before he could hit him with the brass knuckles. And yeah, no Jungle Boy, guys, no Matt Hardy and crew. I actually maybe that's why I enjoyed this match more than I thought I would, because I kind of expected it to be one thing and it wasn't what I expected, and it was an entertaining match. It's like a solid 3-star match, and that's fine to have in the middle of the show, obviously. But I really did enjoy this, and I don't know what they're doing next besides the fact that Christian Cage is now the number 1 contender for AEW World Heavyweight Championship. So if this was the means to that end, totally fine with it. So we'll obviously talk about his interview later on and what that could possibly mean, Christian Cage being the number 1 contender. But we had Proud and Powerful and FTR have their little promo talking about last week's match. Basically, Cash Wheeler getting his whole forearm sliced open, and Dax Harwood cuts this great promo about basically like, Cash Wheeler almost died, I almost lost my friend, whatever. We're gonna run this again, and I'm happy about that, because that match was not good, and they definitely can put on a way better match, and I hope that they do, and it seems like they're gonna get the chance to, and that injury was almost actually kind of like a nice cop-out for them. So, obviously I wish the best and hope that Cash Wheeler can get back into the ring as soon as possible, and I'm just glad he's okay and recovered. But with all that being said, it's almost a nice get-out-of-jail-free card that they can run this back, and I don't know why injuries just tend to do that for all of us. We kind of are just more forgiving of that. So after that, guys, we had Tony Schiavone interviewing Britt Baker in the ring. She starts talking, but before she can really even get going, Red Velvet comes to the ring. We hear "Stir It Up." She's got a mic. She tells Britt that her color, red is not her color, and she's here. Big O's from the crowd, by the way. But yeah, red is not her color, and she's here because she wants a piece of DMD. Britt Baker tells her that she beat her in 3 minutes, and then Red Velvet fires back saying that was just enhancement talent then, and she's 22-4 with 7 straight wins, and she didn't have to cheat to win them. More like oohs from the crowd. Britt says it's impressive, but she's also a different wrestler than she was back then, and now she's a champion, but she'll give Red Velvet the match if Tony Khan approves, which he will, because she is his golden girl or something like that, weird line. And it's going to happen on the debut of Rampage next Friday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then she goes to shake Red Velvet's hand. Red Velvet kicks her hand and ducks a crutch shot from Rebel. But Britt Baker ends up taking her out with the stomp, the curb stomp. I forget what they call it. I think the curb stomp. And then grabs the crutch, grinds it into her neck or her head, and holds her title high. And this was... Guys, this is like my 2 favorite women in their entire AEW division, women's division, and this was awful. This was really bad and really stupid. Really stupid. Okay, I don't know what their deal is with Britt Baker. We've talked about this before on this show. Why don't they just turn her in babyface? Clearly that's what the crowd wants, and she doesn't have to be this like John Cena babyface. She can be like Jon Moxley, hard as nails, but she can still be Britt Baker, the Britt Baker DMD, and be a babyface. And so they're going to her hometown where she's clearly going to get a huge pop. And what's the opponent they choose for her? Probably the second most over babyface in that women's division. Maybe Ty Conti, I don't know. But where has she been? Who knows? She hasn't been on Dynamite, and I don't watch Dark, so at least consecutively or regularly. But they picked their second most over babyface in the women's division to face their supposed heel champion, who's going to get a standing ovation and a giant pop in her hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Why wouldn't they just do like Nyla Rose in this position and maybe do Red Velvet the first challenger? Or why do Red Velvet at all right now? She's not even the number 1 ranked women's wrestler. This was stupid, and it felt forced and unnatural and whatever, not organic. There's just weird accepting of the challenge from Britt Baker. It's if she's keeping a heel, she hasn't been like that normal. It It didn't fit because there's no stories being told. There's just the rankings. And in the men's division, they get both the rankings and stories being told. So maybe if there was a story here, I'd be more interested. But guess what? They don't know what the hell Britt Baker is, this weird tweener. She's being cheered on as a babyface, trying to act like a heel, and it's not working. She's going, again, to her hometown, and they picked the second most over babyface, if you're not including Britt Baker, to pin her up against in a match. It makes no sense. I don't know what their plan is here. I don't think they have one. They put no attention on their women's division. Honestly, guys, it's really starting to get old. Because guess what? If women aren't a draw for AEW, that's not the women's fault. The women have wrestled their hearts out. And yeah, a lot of them definitely need more reps. And we're going to talk about that later on in the show. But at least the women got 2 segments on this show. That's not how I should be talking about it, though. I should be talking about it like, oh my God, that was really cool. Remember that main event that the 2 women had? Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker in the unsanctioned match? That was really awesome. Britt Baker is a draw, and the other women would be a draw if they got nearly enough stories being told, TV time, as Britt Baker did. You can build a women's division around this woman. You just got to actually do it and commit to it and give the women more than 2 seconds on the show every week. But no, again, another week of Dynamite where clearly there is no priority being set on the women or any of the storylines or anything going on in the women's division. The title belt even is insulting itself. It looks like a McDonald's toy, a McDonald's kids meal toy in comparison to that giant, huge, beautiful male world heavyweight championship. You know, WWE is a lot of things, and what they're doing with the women's division in WWE is not good right now, at least in NXT maybe. At least in NXT, they show a little bit more respect to the women's division. Guys, we're in 2021. It's time to start treating women's wrestling just as equally as men's wrestling. And even if you don't feel that way, you could at least fucking fake it, Tony Khan, because it's disgusting to watch the treatment that the women get in comparison to the men on this show. It's really getting old, guys. It is really getting old. And Britt Baker is more talented than most of that roster, and this is what we're getting. And yeah, I understand there was a pandemic. There's no house shows. It's hard to get a lot of reps. You have Dark Elevation. Maybe if the women actually had something they were wrestling for, it might feel a little bit more like the match was more important. But none of these matches feel important because there's no stories being told. Zero, zip. And if they are, they have something to do with men. Always something to do with men. The last story, legitimate, sensible story that was being told was Hikaru Shida versus Britt Baker. And what was that story? That Britt Baker climbed up in the rankings and was going to beat Hikaru Shida. That was pretty much it, guys. And it's depressing and sad at this point. And I'm really disgusted with Tony Khan and all of their creative that this is still going on. The women's division is not the women's wrestlers' fault at this point, guys. It is the creative of AEW Dynamite. And for all of you guys who think I'm a mark for Dynamite or think I'm a mark for AEW and whatever, Tony Khan can do no wrong. Wrong. Tony Khan can do wrong, and he's doing wrong every single week with these women and this women's quote-unquote division. I don't even call it a women's division. It's not a division, and Britt Baker is carrying around a McDonald's Kids Meals toy as a title belt. Again, I want to see those two next to each other, those two title belts. Talk about freaking sexism. Talk about the fact that Tony Khan clearly is showing he views women and women's wrestling way lesser than men's. Sad. So this guy is not this saint, guys, you know, and there's clear problems with Dynamite, and this women's division is number one, and I've tried to be kind about it and give the benefit of the doubt, but here we are now, how many years into this company? The title belt still sucks. The division still sucks. There is no division. There's no stories. There's nothing going on. And the only other women's match or the only other women's segment / match on this show was for NWA, which is good. You should do that. But why not have a different women's match on there too? Maybe you could start telling a story between the frickin' Bunny and Chris Statlander. I don't care. You could tell a story between Red Velvet and the Bunny. It doesn't matter. Instead of just putting your necessary 5 minutes to 10 minutes of a women's wrestling match on the show, why don't you just tell a story? So it's not something people tune out of. So it's something people actually want to watch and are interested in because you put effort in. When a company clearly has no effort or no interest in someone, here's a perfect example. NXT, Frankie Monet. Frankie Monet was signed, obviously, a couple months ago. What are they doing with her? She's in the mid-card, not even the lower than the mid-card with the Robert Stone brand, whatever, all that stuff. They've showed clear direction that they do not view Frankie Monet as important, and neither should we. So, therefore, do I give a crap about any Frankie Monet segments on NXT? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's your point. Same thing. Every single week they tell me not to care about the women's division, and I come on this podcast every week and talk about how they still don't have one, and it's getting tiresome at this point, guys. It's really getting tiresome. Like, get your shit together, AEW, and start treating women as equally as you're treating the men, or at least try to pretend like you feel that way. Instead of, again, your, like, just necessary women's match, 5 to 10 minute women's match with no story in the third hour. Women are not a pee break. Women's wrestling is not a pee break anymore. And the fact that it never should have been, because turns out women have always been really talented, and specifically pro wrestling here. There's Stardom and all those other great companies. Look at Impact. Impact knows how to treat its women's division. At least in comparison. Anyways, I'm moving on. I know I've gone on like a 20-minute rant about all that, but it's necessary. It is really necessary. Why don't you take this next freaking stupid segment with Chavo Guerrero Jr., who is just not it and shouldn't be on AEW, is not all elite. I'm sorry. Your name value, don't get me wrong, guys, I'm a big Eddie Guerrero fan, but what does Chavo really provide to this whole Andrade character? Nothing. Nothing. I don't care if Andrade doesn't speak fluent English. I'm more interested in hearing what Andrade has to say than Chavo Guerrero Jr., and this whole storyline is stupid and weirdly... Like, what? Is Chavo Guerrero going to hack into freaking Pax Uber again? Like, it's just stupid. So maybe they could have given this segment to, I don't know, trying to tell a story with the women's division. I'm not even going to... It's Fuego del Sol to shine his shoes or something, and then they beat him down, and then Chavo Guerrero said some crap I didn't care about. And then when we came back from commercial after that, Tony Schiavone is interviewing Hangman Page in the middle of the ring, but before he can really get started, the Elite interrupt and make their entrance. Now we're talking about something I actually am emotionally invested in because, I don't know, I've been told to emotionally invest in it. It's been told to me through obviously what they produce on TV that it's important. It's not that hard. They're doing it right here. All right, I'm done. I promise, guys. That's it. We're moving on to this segment because I really did enjoy this. Page says he's glad the Young Bucks are here because there's something he needed to say for a while, but Kenny Omega cuts him off, says that he can see what Hangman's trying to do, make a plea to rejoin the Elite, but Page cuts him off, says that's the last thing he'd do. And then Omega says, given his recent failures, he shares a lot in common with a lot of these people in Jacksonville, and he's a tryhard just like them, and that they've spent a lot of time thinking about if they wanted to forgive Hangman for his sins, but given what the Elite are, he just doesn't fit the bill. Cowboy or not, the Elite doesn't have any losers, failures, or second fiddles in the group. And then before he can continue on, Hangman Page has had enough, slaps Kenny Omega across the face. However, the obvious numbers advantage is there, and so both the Elite and just the Elite beat down Hangman Page. Dark Order come out seemingly like they're going to make the save, but Evil Uno and Stu Grayson hold the rest of the Dark Order back, considering obviously what happened earlier on in the show where Page wanted to stand alone. The Bucks hit him with a bunch of BTE triggers. There was a Magic Killer in there. Frankie Kazarian comes out. Remember that guy who got beaten by Doc Gallows? Still don't get why that happened. And Frankie Kazarian essentially gets thrown out of the ring, and Kenny gives Page one last look at the thing he'll never have and hits him in the head with the title belt. And this was really effective, guys. I mean, another great story beat in this. I'll say this though, as much as I love this, I'm getting a little tired of the same stuff. If you're gonna have Hangman Page kind of on this journey back downwards again, and you're gonna build him back up, I don't know. It seems it's almost like a very similar thing every week, but just like with different color lipstick, if that makes sense. So I did really like this, and I thought this was really effective in, again, making it clear the Elite are a bunch of D-bags, and and Hangman Page is a guy who doesn't believe and deserve he has friends. And so while we're here, guys, on this wonderful Thursday evening, I'm going to give you a little anecdote from my life that happened this past week. I have a very close friend of mine who's going through something, and she made a lot of stupid decisions and a lot of stupid mistakes. And I love her to death, but she did a stupid thing. We all do stupid things. However, she's been feeling really guilty about the stupid thing that she did. I saw her the other night, and she was sitting on a stairwell kind of crying, right, about all the stupid things she did. And so, as a good friend, right, I went over and sat with her and asked her if she was all right and if she wanted to be alone or whatever. And she nodded her head, saying she wanted to be alone. And because I'm pushy, or I don't know, maybe it's just the kind of person I am, I didn't leave. It felt wrong to leave someone crying alone in the stairwell by themselves. So I stayed sitting with her, and I didn't say anything the entire time. I just sat with her, but maybe 2 minutes go by, and she gets up and essentially gives like the metaphorical middle finger and storms off outside. I got the point at that point. And so I loved that, because here's a situation in my life that we've all had similar situations like that. We have a friend who's going through something, but they're pushing you away, and all you want to do is help them, but they're pushing you away. And you had I wish I had Stu Grayson and Evil Uno the other day to hold me back from continuing to stay and sit there and pull me up and say, this person wants to be left alone. That's exactly what they did. And what happened when Hangman was left alone? He got his butt whooped. And that's what happens when we're on our own, right? We need people to have our back. We need friends in life or whatever. So it's got just all these different tones to the story. So relatable and so well done. And then on top of it all, you have the stupid theatrics of the Elite, and they're awful people, characters-wise, obviously, and they drive me nuts. So they're doing their job. And yeah, so really just well relatable, good stuff that's going on here. I want to see a little progression. I want to be told that this is progressing in a way, and we're not just like doing the same stuff over and over again. So next up, we had the TNT Championship match, and guys, essentially this was a squash match, but I was actually really surprised with the amount of offense Lee Johnson got in. But for the most part, this was just another spectacle that is Miro, another showcase for the spectacle that is Miro. Essentially, Lee Johnson immediately goes after Miro, but he just nails him with the right hand. Throughout the match, Lee Johnson keeps trying to punch him in the face, but it's not affecting him. There was a really good delayed sell somewhere in there. I think it was off a DDT. And Miro's like wobbles, and he looks fine, and then he falls to the ground. They don't do that enough. I thought that was really well done, too. We had a nice near fall off a frog splash, but we only got a 2 count there. And then after a blocking a fireman's carry off the ropes, Miro hits the Machka kick. I think he still calls it that. That's at least what I know it by. And screams game over, gets Lee Johnson in the submission, falls back, does that brutal looking like body scissors backbreaker camel clutch thing that he does, the game over, and gets the victory and retains the AEW TNT Championship. So this was really good, guys. Again, for me, I wanted to say it was too long. Like, my instincts say maybe it was a little bit too long. But I don't even think so, because they treated it like a championship match, not a squash match. But it was like a championship squash match, if that makes sense. They did a really good job of balancing the two things. And so I really did enjoy this. Miro, guys, is in prime form. Keep telling me about your flexible wife and that God chose your opponents and whatever. He's just a delusional maniac. And he looks freaking terrifying. So Miro's the character he's playing now, on point. And Lee Johnson is definitely got a lot of potential as like a real, fan favorite, just lovable baby face. That guy who's going to get beat down until he gets the victory one day. And I'd love to see them run this back at some point. And I'd love to see Lee Johnson have a feud with some giant guy, get super injured, and be able to come back and try to redeem himself again, just get his stuff rocked once again, and then do it all. Like, you can, like, milk this, like, nice giant guy, little guy feud thing they got going on. And, yeah, keep feeding Miro little guys. I'm not sick of this yet. I don't know about you guys, but I love these. Tell me what you think. Who would you like to be your next... who would you like to be the next challenger for the TNT Championship? And then who do you think is going to be the next TNT champion? I will save my pick for a later time, but I have a good feeling it might be happening, I don't know, at a wonderful show in New York if we all get vaccinated so I can still go and see it. Please, guys, get vaccinated, be good, wear your masks if you need to wear masks or mandated to wear masks, stay safe. We were so close, guys, so close. I know we don't want to go back to empty arenas and then the rest of the actual real life stuff that comes along with the pandemic. So anyways, moving on from your short commercial break there, we come back to Christian Cage being interviewed. He says that he was announced Kenny Omega's number one contender now for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship, and is asked if he's going to repay Layla Hirsch's favor earlier when she came out and made the save for him against the Bunny. And he says he offered, but she has some best friends that have her back. He did a weird singing bit in this point. Whatever. I'm glad he's just not trying to be so super intense all the time and outwork everybody. Like, I'll take if Christian wants to get a little bit giggly from time to time or try to be cringeworthy in singing, cool, fine. He talks about how excited he is to get a title shot, and he says that he's better than good. He's elite. So after that, we had the mandatory women's match of the night, and it was the Bunny versus Layla Hirsch. The Bunny comes out obviously in tow with the Blade, who looks like he was never in a match, which was kind of weird. And some of the rest of Hardy's Foundation. Layla Hirsch comes out, obviously, with best friends. So essentially, they have like a mob going on. They have all the rosebuds outside of the ring. And this was an NWA Women's World Heavyweight this was an NWA Women's World Championship #1 contenders match. This was entertaining because Layla Hirsch is really great, and so is the Bunny. And I've sung I feel weird saying it every time, guys, but I've sung the Bunny's praises on this podcast plenty of times. She has proven herself. Her and I don't know why I'm forgetting her name off the top of my head. You know why I'm forgetting her name, guys? Because AEW doesn't really care to make me remember her name. Penelope Ford. Her and Penelope Ford have been so key in making these mandatory 5 to 10 minute women's matches on Dynamite in the third hour something to stick to and watch. They play the heel really well in these matches, and they take these losses, but they are clear stables of this women's division, and I want to make sure I give them credit as much as I can, because clearly nobody else is, in AEW at least. And Layla Hirsch, guys, has got a really fun way of wrestling, because she's like got this weird Ronda Rousey vibe about her, but then all of a sudden she like pulls out a crazy high spot, like the suicide dive that she started right away with during this match. Some arm bars, she goes for a bunch of submissions, essentially. The Bunny gets control later on in the match. Chris Statlander and Nyla Rose end up going face-to-face at ringside at one point, because everybody is at this match somehow. So at least, or outside of the ring at this match. Nonetheless, guys, Hirsch snaps a German suplex. Bunny hits another one, hits a crossbody in the corner, double knees, gets a 2 count, and then goes into the cross arm bar. Tries to pick the ankle, tries to all these different submissions, and then she hits the springboard moonsault, completely flails and misses it. But then when she is able to reverse a pinfall attempt, I think it was, snaps into another armbar. Bunny fights it, and the minute that she snaps the arm back, Bunny taps out, and Layla Hirsch wins by submission with a cross armbar to be the #1 contender of the NWA Women's World Championship. And post-match, we had obviously the NWA Women's World Champion, Camille. She comes to the ring. She is freaking huge. I think she had a pair of heels on too, but she's huge in comparison, obviously. And just like I said with the Miro and Lee Johnson thing, big versus little is always entertaining. And although this is not for AEW TV, it was still entertaining nonetheless, and I probably will seek this out to watch this NWA Women's World title match. I'm entertained enough with Layla Hirsch, and I think she's going to do great things. So despite AEW's booking and their inability really to book, I'm excited about Layla Hirsch, and I'm going to try to go watch that NWA Women's World Championship match whenever obviously that is announced. And next up, guys, was our main event, Cody Rhodes versus Malakai Black. Malakai Black gets this insane entrance. You've probably seen it if you don't live under a rock. On all the stuff on Twitter, people were crazy about it, and I really enjoyed it as well. I'm not usually into all the weird dark stuff, but Malakai Black is doing a good job of not being supernatural, just being dark, if that makes sense. No pun intended. And right away, Cody Rhodes gets kicked in the back of the leg, and that's kind of the story of the match, where Black hits him in the hamstring, and Cody kind of can't get his footing back. And yeah, that's the story of the whole match. So nonetheless, we get back and forth here and there with more kicks and reverses, and no one really gets some real offense until Malakai Black is able to sweep the leg, or Rhodes hits an enziguri, but Malakai is able to sweep the leg out and get a half crab on obviously the same leg that he kicked the hamstring of. Then we go to break, and when we come back, we get that crazy spot on the top rope where Cody Rhodes is obviously up at the top rope. Malakai Black gets him with a kick. I think it was to the leg. Cody crashes out onto the floor and through the timekeeper's table. And this is like a couple minutes into the match, and I'm thinking like, what are they doing with the rest of the time on the show, obviously? But Rhodes barely beats the 10 count back into the ring. But then right away, Malakai Black hits him with a huge black mass, puts the 1 foot on him, and gets the cover for the 1, 2, 3. A definitive, clear victory for Malakai Black. I really like this match. Before we get into any of the post-match stuff, guys, I really like this match. I thought it was unexpected, and unexpected can be really good in wrestling sometimes. You know, obviously when it's not just unexpected to be unexpected, but when there's a purpose behind it. And this definitely put Malakai Black over. I hope they protect the Black Mass as much as they're protecting the One-Winged Angel. I really do. I think, like, I want to see people just get knocked out. You got to be so weary of just getting a freaking foot to the face from Malakai Black. So that was just such a fun match to watch. Again, was it a 5-star classic? No. But was it crazy and really impactful? Absolutely. And after the match, we had doctors checking up on Cody, and Tony Schiavone goes up to interview him. Oddly enough, man just gets knocked out. And Tony's like, let me go interview him. This is a weird thing with the crutch the whole time, but let me summarize basically what Cody Rhodes said. A lot of heavy breathing and back and forth and selling of the leg, all for that, obviously. But Rhodes says that legacy is a funny thing. He got into wrestling when he was only 15. He was a referee, and all he wanted to do was win the title they took away from his dad in the Garden. But that was his goal then. Times change, time flies. He had so much fun. Cody thanks Tony for his help and says that, obviously Tony Schiavone helping him up, says that that was his goal then, but then this unprecedented thing happened and he fired them. They didn't fire him. He met Kenny Omega, Matt, and Nick Jackson, and a bunch of people laughed at them for saying that they were going to start a revolution, but now the AEW is no longer an alternative. They are legit competition. They set this table, and now maybe some new people can eat. A lot of AEW chants, obviously, throughout this entire thing. For 3 years, his face has been on everything. Maybe some outside interest came up in his way, some infighting with the EVPs, but he mentions that he loves all those guys very deeply, and he'll love them forever and forever be tethered to them. And he says, with all respect to Daly's place, to him, this is the AEW amphitheater. Big pop for that. And there is no better place than here and no better time than now. He starts to lean over, take his boot off, obviously, to clearly leave his boots in the ring. And before he can get the second one off, Malakai Black hits him from behind with the crutch and grabs his boot and walks off. Yeah, I heard there was he took both boots off again and left him in the ring after the whole thing went off the air, according to stuff that people videotaped who were actually at the show. Tony Khan also apparently made some statement. I don't know if that was before or after the show. But anyways, yeah, guys, this was, I guess, supposed Cody's like trying to retire, but then didn't get to retire. I don't know what they're doing. I have no idea if he was actually trying to retire, and then Malakai Black was like, nope, and they're going to have another match. I don't know if they were trying to have him actually retire and he's going to be done and he was just really trying to put Malakai Black over as a heel through the end of it. I don't know. Guys, Cody Rhodes is going to Cody Rhodes. As I said, it's getting very... Listen, the man is a great man, and I love that he goes and puts his weight belt, to a young fan almost every single week. Like, all that stuff, I think he's obviously got a big heart, and he's a great babyface, but he's also super... overindulgent and an egomaniac. And I think that Chris Jericho kind of owns it a little bit more than he does. And I feel like he tries to play this weird role, but we all see the kind of ego that he has with this huge entrance and all this other stuff. Obviously, I won't get into the whole thing. And I love Cody Rhodes, guys. I've been a Cody Rhodes fan for a really long time. And I've always weirdly just really liked Cody Rhodes wrestling, even when he was just like new into wrestling. I don't know why. I don't know what it was, but I think Cody Rhodes is a really good talent. I just think that this was not unnecessary, and that might be a weird take. If he's not really retiring, this felt unnecessary, and if he was retiring, I kind of wish they just let it be. I wish they didn't have Malakai Black come out. And I don't know. I'm also totally willing to just see where it goes with AEW. I'm really, with this men's division at least, I'm willing to see where it goes. And I'd love to see another match between these two. I didn't get nearly enough. I only got a taste, and I'm definitely ready to sit for the table for more. So, nonetheless, guys, that is your AEW Dynamite review show for the week. I hope you enjoyed the show. We talked a lot of ranting this week, but there's definitely a lot of really good stuff going on in AEW, and I'm so excited to see what they do with Hangman Page. I really hope it's not going to be Christian Cage versus Kenny Omega at All Out, but maybe they are saving something else bigger that's going to be on the main card, kind of like what they did with Double or Nothing and Stadium Stampede. I don't know. I'm just here along for the ride with you guys, and until next week, I will talk to you guys next time.